function, trade on inputs and fertilizers, and of course on staples, on crops and foods. And we have a very good reason of hope here. Now the Black Sea grain deal is working, and the grain is coming out of the area of conflict in Ukraine into the global markets. But we need to do much more. We need to make this work also for fertilizers, to secure that what it is now partially a food supply and a food affordability crisis is not turning up into a food availability crisis in the future, which would be catastrophic. Second, at the global level, it's not just about trade or inputs. It's about equipping our countries to be able to respond in a context of financial shrinked fiscal spaces to empowering farmers and to social protection. And this means a decisive action by the IMF, by the World Bank, by the regional development banks to provide this fiscal space and the finance needed for these responses. And third and finally, of course, globally, we need to secure humanitarian assistance to those countries and to those contexts that were already in conflict or in dire situations. I will leave it here, but I would like to build upon the hope, the dimension of hope, later if I may have the opportunity. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, and quite some important elements there that you mentioned, and I really like the act together. And as we talk about building global food systems and relying on a global structure, we can't do this without the power and the force of partnerships. So that begs the question of what kind of partnerships do we want, and what is the role of the public and the private sector in this regard? And I'd like to ask you, Mr. Holsether, from your perspective, how can we get the commitments that are required to transform our food systems when it comes to partnerships?
Well, first of all, thank you, and thanks for the invitation here. It's a great pleasure to be with all the excellencies here, ladies and gentlemen, all friends, to talk about such an important topic. And the crisis has been well described, and if there is one thing that we learned in the last 2.5 years with the pandemic, now with Russia's war on Ukraine, is how long and how complex the value chains are for food production. And that makes them very vulnerable as well, and we see now significant disruptions to food production as a direct result of that. The solution, or at least part of the solution, is to have more regional and local resilience. And for Africa, that also means a very big opportunity, a very big business opportunity to develop the agri-sector much faster and accelerate that transition. And as we already saw with a food import bill of some $50 billion, that's money that should stay on the continent, that should create jobs on the continent. And in order to get there, we need to increase productivity as well. There is a yield gap. And for that, we need to start with the soil. And there is a soil crisis in the world. There's a soil crisis in Africa. And the solution here is to work together with the farmers, listen to the farmers, supporting the farmers with the best practices, and to start the restoration of soil, to bring back the health of the soil and to get the right quality. And of course, availability and affordability of the right and high quality fertilizer is crucial, but the issue is also wider than that. It is about the soil. When we have high cost for fertilizers, we need to make every nutrient count. And that's why it's so important that in order to have the nutrition work in the right way, the soil has to be taken into account so that we add the right nutrients to address the needs of the crops, but also to make it more resilient. The soil here in Africa, of course, it differs a lot across the whole continent, but on average, it is very acidic. And we need to do something about that through, for instance, liming to enable food production at a greater scale and to make agriculture a business as a growth engine for the economy as well. But then I think it's important that we listen to the farmers. What is exactly that they need, and how do we come up with solutions that will work today for the next crop, not in 10 years from now. And this is what we're doing from Yara. I lead Yara International. That's one of the largest fertilizer companies in the world, and we've been for decades here in Africa. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that I believe that at some point in Africa will be our most important and largest continent for our business, because all of the pieces are here to make agriculture a huge economic growth engine, and we have to treat it that way. Yesterday I spent time with our team here in Rwanda and for the African continent, and when I see how we're working directly with the farmers to address the needs, and by focusing on the specific needs of the farmers, taking into account the soil health as well, and creating more balanced nutrition, with the example of a farmer where she went from applying just 2 nutrients of commodity fertilizer, expanding to 5 nutrients, a small adjustment to the formulas of fertilizer. She went from producing 10 bags of maize per hectare to 15, a 50% increase in the first crop. And with a small increase, about $30 increase in the fertilizer cost, and the additional income of $300. So the value proposition is clear, but then we also have to communicate and get the message out there to the farmers as well. And to conclude, the solutions are already invented. We don't need any new breakthrough technologies or anything. What we need is collaboration across with the private sector, with the farmers, with the governments, in order to drive this going forward. And I also fully agree with your opening statement, and also from my colleague here on the panel. It's about action now. We need to get this going. And for me, solution is in the soil, literally, and it has 3 main parts. It's about high quality fertilizers at an affordable price. It's about digital tools to enable precision farming and cutting the supply chain costs. And it's about the crop specific knowledge transfer, getting the competence out there with the farmers. Thank you.
You would like to add to that? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, if I could just add to your question in terms of what type of partnerships. I think we all realize we cannot do it alone. Corteva Pioneer will be in 4 years' time 100 years old. We don't have the capacity, time, understanding to do it ourselves. So when you ask what type of partnerships, I think it's important to have partnerships that are committed to Africa, not just in terms of funding, but a presence, foot on the ground, investment on the ground, similar to our friends here at Yara, also truly committed to making the change. And I think it's also about selecting those partners, whether it's government, but also a local player that understands the dynamics, the challenges, and the opportunities to form partnerships. Over the last 2 years also, we've reflected when it comes to partnerships also, it's maybe a case of also less than more. And instead of trying to play in every market in Africa, trying to change the whole continent, just pick your battles, over-deliver, have the success, and then move on. So I think it's not about having a partnership with every organization in the room. Pick your ones that can add, that can be complementary, and those are the type of partnerships that we need.
That's a really important point, and I like that. Less is more. Rather than try and have a blanket approach to partnerships and to development, rather focus strategically. So in that light, from your perspective, how should we plan for this? How can we move forward? And I'd also like to hear what have we learned from the lessons? I mean, we've gone through I call it a crazy 2 years, coming from a COVID-19 pandemic all the way through to the Russia-Ukraine war, where the economic but also human shocks that we've encountered have just demonstrated the fragility of our food system. So what have we learned, and how do we move forward decisively?
So what we've learned, and whether one calls it a crisis or an opportunity, the task is enormous. And what we've learned from this is that technology holds the answer. Funding is required, but also education. We've got a big drive to say Africa for Africa. We've got the capability, the understanding. So how do we develop both with internal in our organization, building those scientists, leaders that can help feed Africa, but also how do we establish sort of knowledge transfer? And that knowledge transfer could be as basic as working with partners such as USAID, John Deere, etc., in terms of agronomy, but it could also be about leadership. So Barbara, our communications leader, is passionate about women leadership. So we've started a program, giving skills in terms of economics, entrepreneurship. So it's not just about agronomy, it's about that full value chain is also needed in terms of tackling this target ahead of us.
Thank you. And Mr. Ambassador, I'd like to ask you the same question. How do you see this? How can we move forward decisively?
Well, adding to what my colleagues have just said, and indeed it's about mobilizing partnerships and private sector investments in a way that it is scaled up the impact investment philosophy and principles so that all investments are also impact investments and that are not separate issues. Impact investments meaning that they are deliberately delivering on people's well-being and on the environment as well, such as you were outlining. But I would like to go back to the public side, to the public sector side, and maybe building on the example we see that inspires us, my country, and the Committee with Africa. So I would say that it's also needed very sound vision, leadership, public policies, institutions. And the example of Africa is very clear. We are seeing that you have a vision. The continent has a very sound, clear, unifying vision, Africa 2063, that goes beyond but builds upon the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda. That there is leadership to keep up that vision alive, even in the middle of shocks and crises like we are living. Then there is a regional program. There is the public policy in place, the CAADP, the Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program. It has been there for many years. It is still there. It is evolving and learning and adapting to the challenges. There are the institutions, the African Union, NEPAD, and of course, your governments at the national level, at the local levels, your majors and your actors. And now you have a new vision of a free trade area, continental area, a vision that will become a reality. So these are the ingredients from the public side that may make also flourish partnerships and deliver on impact. With one condition, all the public side needs to be thought, built and implemented in spaces that are already multi-stakeholder and that are already inclusive of all the parts involved and all the voices.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the time for our closing remarks. So I'll start with you, Mr. Holsether. What would you like to hear over the next couple of days?
Well, I hope we can be as concrete as possible and as needed now on the next steps. How do we accelerate the change? Because as I said initially, we have all the pieces. There are no need for innovations. It's about putting the practices out there and accelerating growth. And that can only be done in partnerships. And I see many elements of that. We're working very closely with USAID and with AGRA in Ghana and Uganda now in empowering farmers and giving them access to both the right crop nutrition fertilizers but also tailoring it to the need of the soil and the need for the crops. And these are examples, but it demonstrates the yield gap and what is possible to do in the next harvest to make more resilient food system, because we have to keep in mind we have shocks with the pandemic, with the war, but climate also plays an important role here. We see that across the world now, that we have record droughts, we have floods, we have extreme temperatures, high and low, and I think we have to be prepared that this is the new normal. And with the food system, one being part of the problem with the emissions, it's also an important part of the solution. By creating more resilient farming, low carbon farming, we can reduce emissions, but also make the soil and the ag sector more resilient to climate change as well. So it's possible to do all. The time where we could do this in silo, each and every one of us, and do a little bit, and that's enough, it's long overdue. So now the only way forward is partnerships, and I hope in the discussions in the next 2-3 days here that we can focus on concrete actions. How do we accelerate, and how do we do this together?
Thank you. I also look forward to that. And for you, Mr. Vermeulen?
I think it was Tom Peters that said, you are what you eat, you are the company that you keep. If you have more than 3 meals a day, and one of them are meat, you are truly privileged. I think from who the company we keep, I think within this room, the capacity here is phenomenal. And I think we all need to commit to make sure that everybody is privileged enough to have free meals. What I would like to see in a year's time is that technology is higher on the agenda than regulatory hurdles. I think we need to unlock and make it easier for Africa to do business with Africa than for Africa doing business with the world outside of Africa.
Fantastic, thank you. And for you, Ambassador?
Well, in the lines of what my colleague just said, I would like to see during these days the concrete ways in which we are doing this together, governments at the local level, but also at the subnational and the national level, with companies, with civil society, with farmer organizations, to deliver on and to make concrete all this vision, leadership, strategy at the community level, at the local level, where families live and devote to their lives.
Brilliant, and it's on that note that we close the first panel of this summit. Thank you very much to my panelists. Would you give them a round of applause as they regain their seats? And we'll just have a short moment as we await for Right Honourable Prime Minister of Rwanda. Thank you.
iteka ndagukumbura iyo ndi mu nzira ngaruka nabumbura amaso nkibonera imisozi menya ko nahageze ngatangira gutwenga iwacu burya ni iwacu iwacu burya ni heza Rwanda uri igisobanuro cy'ubuhanga bwa rurema Rwanda ni wowe rugero kuko nyuma y'umwijima hari umucyo waramutse mu gitondo n'ahandi wayisanga ku isi nyamara iyo ndi mahanga ndiramutsa nkikiriza n'ahandi utira ku ivuko n'ahandi utira ku isoko i Rwanda ni iwacu iwacu burya ni iwacu iwacu burya ni heza Rwanda uri igisobanuro cy'ubuhanga bwa rurema Rwanda ni wowe rugero kuko nyuma y'umwijima hari umucyo
ibihe byiza kuri mwe mwese mukomeje gutega yombi televiziyo Rwanda, mwese mudukurikiye tubahe ikaze muri gahunda zacu zikomereje aha ngaha muri Kigali Convention Center, aho turimo kubagezaho imirimo y'inama mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi ku mugabane wa Afurika, inama izwi nka AGRF. Ni inama itegurwa n'ihuriro mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi ku mugabane wa Afurika AGRA. Ni nyuma y'igihe kinini inama nk'izi ngizi zitaba kubera icyorezo cya COVID-19, ariko mumaze kubibona ko muri iyi minsi ibikorwa nk'ibi ngibi bihuriza hamwe abantu benshi byongeye gusubukurwa. Iyi nama rero ni imwe mu zari zimaze iminsi zitegerejwe, dore ko yitabiriwe n'abantu babarirwa mu bihumbi baturutse imihanda yose, haba ku mugabane wa Afurika ndetse no ku yindi migabane, kuko mu rwego rw'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi by'umwihariko mu iterambere ryarwo, umugabane wa Afurika ufite abafatanyabikorwa benshi, guhera ku muryango w'abibumbye ndetse n'abandi bafatanyabikorwa, umuryango w'ubumwe bw'i Burayi ndetse n'ibindi bigo n'imiryango mpuzamahanga. Ni inama rero igiye kumara iminsi hafi 4 ibera hano muri Kigali Convention Center, aho mu kanya katarambiranye haza kuba ibiganiro biyifungura ku mugaragaro. Mu kanya gato rero nyakubahwa Minisitiri w'Intebe Dr. Edouard Ngirente akaza kuba ari ahangaha. Ni inama kandi yitabirwa n'abandi banyacyubahiro barimo n'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma, nk'uko mwaraye mubikurikiye. Bamwe bakaba baraye hano mu Rwanda, bamwe muri bo mwabashije kubona cyangwa se mwabonye mu makuru baraye hano mu Rwanda, harimo Perezida wa Zimbabwe Edson Mnangagwa, nawe akaba yaritabiriye iyi nama, ndetse hakaba hari n'abandi banyacyubahiro batandukanye barimo abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma. Bikaba byumvikana rero ko ari inama yo ku rwego rwo hejuru, inama irebera hamwe ibisubizo bishoboka ku rwego rw'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi, kugira ngo umugabane wa Afurika ubashe kwihaza mu biribwa, ubashe kurwanya inzara, muzi ko yugarije abatari bake kuri uyu mugabane. Uyu mugabane ubashe kurwanya ikibazo cy'imirire mibi ndetse n'igwingira mu bana ba Afurika. Mu kanya gato rero nyakubahwa Minisitiri w'Intebe akaza kuba ageze ahangaha mu biganiro bitangiza ku mugaragaro iyi nama, inama mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi ahangaha ku mugabane wa Afurika. Undi uza kugeza ijambo rero ku bitabiriye ibiganiro bifungura iyi nama ni Dr. Agnes Kalibata, muzi ko ari we uyobora iri huriro, ndetse na Mariam Desalegn wahoze ari Minisitiri w'Intebe wa Ethiopia, muzi ko ari we uyobora inama y'ubutegetsi y'ikigo AGRA. Ikigo AGRA muzi ko aricyo kinategura iyi nama ya AGRF, cyangwa se inama mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi ku mugabane wa Afurika. Iyi nama rero ikaba yabimburiwe n'ibindi biganiro byabaye mu masaha makeya atambutse, dore ko ari ibiganiro mu by'ukuri byinjizaga abitabiriye iyi nama mu biganiro nyirizina bizaranga iyi nama izamara iminsi igera hafi kuri 5. Nkuko mubizi mu minsi ishize Perezida wa AGRA cyangwa se iriro mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi ku mugabane wa Afurika Dr. Agnes Kalibata ari kumwe n'umuyobozi w'inama y'ubutegetsi y'iri huriro rya AGRA Mariam Desalegn wahoze ari Minisitiri w'Intebe wa Ethiopia, bakaba barakiriwe na Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame muri Village Urugwiro, aho bamugejejeho byinshi kuri iyi nama, imyiteguro yayo ndetse n'abanyacyubahiro tuvuga uyu munsi bagomba kuyitabira. Hari abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma, ariko hari n'abahoze muri iyo myanya, hari abafasha b'abakuru b'ibihugu. Byumvikana ko uyu munsi u Rwanda ni ihuriro ry'inama nk'izi ngizi, ni ihuriro ry'abaturutse imihanda yose bitabiriye iyi nama, by'umwihariko inzego zifite aho zihurira n'iterambere ry'urwego rw'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi, cyane cyane amashami y'umuryango w'abibumbye, yaba ishami ry'umuryango w'abibumbye ryita ku biribwa PAM cyangwa se World Food Program, yaba ndetse n'ishami ry'umuryango w'abibumbye ryita ku buhinzi n'ubworozi FAO, abo bayobozi bose ku rwego mpuzamahanga bakaba bateraniye hano mu Rwanda, urwego rw'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi kugira ngo rwongerwemo imbaraga, hanyuma abanyafurika babashe kwihaza mu biribwa. Nk'uko mubizi, mu minsi ishize hakaba haravutse ikibazo cyane cyane ku binyampeke kubera ibyo muri Ukraine, ndavuga ibinyampeke byo muri Ukraine byari byarahagaze kubera intambara muzi ibera muri Ukraine. Mu biganiro byatangiwe ahangaha bikaba byagaragajwe ko mu by'ukuri ukurikije amahirwe Afurika ifite yo kugira ubuso bunini bwo guhingaho, ukurikije amahirwe Afurika ifite iyo kuba mu by'ukuri ibibazo by'imihindagurikire y'ikirere bitarafata intera ikomeye nk'uko ahandi mu bice by'isi bimeze, ukurikije mu by'ukuri ubutaka bwera Afurika ifite, haracyari amahirwe menshi yo kuba ubwo ubutaka bwabyazwa umusaruro, kuba ibyo byose byabyazwa umusaruro, Afurika ikabasha kwihaza mu biribwa. Ariko nanone hacyari imbogamizi zimwe na zimwe kuba Afurika itarabasha kwihaza ku nyongeramusaruro nk'imbuto ndetse n'amafumbire. Muzi ko tukivuga ku ngaruka z'intambara ya Ukraine n'Uburusiya nuko habaye ikibazo cy'ingano n'ibindi binyampeke bitabaje kugera muri Afurika, ariko nanone hakaba ikindi kibazo gikomeye cy'uko muri Afurika ntago hakorerwa ifumbire ndetse ngo habe ubutubuzi bw'imbuto zitandukanye zishobora gutuma mu by'ukuri umusaruro mu bwiza no mu bwinshi wiyongera, abanyafurika ubwabo babashe kwihaza ariko babe banasagurira amasoko mpuzamahanga, dore ko ikibazo cy'ibiribwa kitareba umugabane wa Afurika gusa, kireba n'indi migabane nk'umugabane wa Aziya, ariko n'ahandi badafite ubushobozi cyangwa se n'amahirwe nk'ay'umugabane wa Afurika ufite. Murabizi ko mu minsi ishize hatangiye isoko rusange rya Afurika, Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Umukuru w'igihugu murabyibuka ko ubwo yakiraga indahiro z'abaminisitiri bashya ushinzwe ishoramari rya leta, ndetse nawe akaba yarabigarutseho, ndavuga umukuru w'igihugu akaba yaragarutse mu by'ukuri ku bijyanye no guteza imbere urwego rw'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi kugira ngo habonekemo ibyabasha gucuruzwa mu rwego rw'umugabane muri rusange, mu rwego rw'isoko rusange rya Afurika, kuko igihe yakiraga indahiro za minisitiri mushya ushinzwe ishoramari rya leta, icyo gihe yanakiriye indahiro z'umunyamabanga wa leta muri Minisiteri y'Ubuhinzi n'Ubworozi. Byumvikana ko ni inshingano yagarukagaho Minisiteri y'Ubuhinzi n'Ubworozi ikwiriye gushyiramo imbaraga. Nyakubahwa Minisitiri w'Intebe Dr. Edouard Ngirente rero akaba ageze ahangaha aho agiye gutangiza iyi nama ku mugaro, ndetse akaba ari kumwe na Dr. Agnes Kalibata, perezida w'iri huriro mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi ku mugabane wa Afurika, rinategura iyi nama ya AGRF igiye gutangira mu aya masaha. Nyakubahwa Minisitiri w'Intebe Dr. Edouard Ngirente rero akaba Nyakubahwa Minisitiri w'Intebe Dr. Edouard Ngirente rero akaba ageze ahangaha muri Kigali Convention Center, ahagiye gutangira ku mugaragaro iyi nama mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi. Inama izwi nka AGRF ni inama nk'uko twakomeje kubibabwira yitabiriwe n'abanyacyubahiro batandukanye, harimo n'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma ahangaha ku mugabane wa Afurika, ndetse n'abayobozi b'imiryango mpuzamahanga, abafatanyabikorwa batandukanye b'umugabane wa Afurika mu iterambere ry'urwego rw'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi. Rero mu kanya katarambiranye imirimo y'iyi nama ikaba iza gutangira ku mugaragaro. Inama izamara iminsi hafi 4 ibera hano mu Rwanda. Inama yitabiriwe n'ibihumbi n'ibihumbi biturutse hirya no hino ku isi.
And for this next session, it is my absolute honor to welcome, to give us our welcome remarks, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, President of the AGRA and host of the AGRF Secretariat. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Your Excellency, Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Government of Rwanda, Your Excellency, Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, the Chair of the Agro Board and Chair of the AGRF partners, Honorable Ministers here present, Honorable Leaders of the industries in the agriculture sector and beyond in food systems, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AGRF 2022 here again in Kigali. We are extremely happy to host you today, and we are extremely happy to see the excitement that you have brought back to Kigali. It seems like we are all anxiously waiting to meet each other. I just want to remind you one thing. Someone yesterday said that it looks like the food system followed me to Kigali. No, I just want to tell you that actually the food system borrowed from the AGRF. The AGRF was always this big. So just to help you understand that we are extremely proud of this forum, and we are proud of many of you that have come to join us in Kigali from the Food System Summit and continue to be part of this journey. My job here today is really just to give you a few highlights. Today, we started off with the presentation of the food crisis, recognizing fully well that we are actually sitting in the midst of a food crisis, that we shouldn't be sitting in the midst of. So the conversation here, I hope, did highlight that. We then have the opportunity in the Food System Summit that many of you participated in, many of our countries participated in. That's going to be the remaining part of today's theme, whether it is the ASR that is being launched, or whether it is the afternoon where countries will step forward and present the first pathways that are being, the first strategies and investment opportunities that are coming from the Food System Summit. By the way, it's just 1 year since we had, it's September, 1 year after the Food System Summit. So we are happy that, again, here in Kigali, we can talk about celebrating the first strategies and investment plans coming out of the food systems. Tomorrow we'll talk about climate change and the journey to COP27, because that's what this is about too. We are in the midst of a climate crisis and we have to address that. But also tomorrow we'll talk about nutrition, because that's the other crisis we have as well, with obesity levels increasing, with so much lack of inclusion, so many people having fallen out of the ability to feed themselves, starting with COVID-19 and all these crises. The next day is one of the biggest opportunities, talking about trade and the opportunities we can have around trade, but also we have the Council of the Wise, where our wise former heads of state and other people, the former heads of leaders of industry also have an opportunity to meet and have a conversation around how we can move things forward. Friday we'll have the closing ceremony, and really the closing ceremony is going to be about what did we agree on this whole week, because this week comes at a very crucial time, a crisis, a food crisis, that is moving on to UNGA, the UN, where people are going to be having these conversations and what we do. We want to make sure that Africa does have a view before we go to UNGA. Going on to COP27, where we are talking about resilience and adaptation. What's going to be our view going forward? So as we come together with this energy here in this room, as you come together to meet again, as you come together to have an opportunity to have conversations, let's keep those things at the back of our mind, that this is an opportunity for Africa to start charting a path forward across all these crises, but also how we come to work together across all these crises. So thank you for being here today. Welcome to Rwanda. Rwanda is my home, as well as you would know. But so I'm really I'm very happy and excited to be welcoming here today. So we'll see you during the week, and thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for honoring our invitation and being part of us today. Thank you again.
And I would like to also welcome on stage Honorable Gerardine Mukeshimana, Minister for Agriculture and Animal Resources of the Government of Rwanda. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Rwanda, Your Excellency Hailemariam Desalegn, the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Chair of AGRA and AGRF Partner Group, Honorable Ministers, dear Dr. Kalibata, President of AGRA and the UN Special Envoy for Food System Summit, Excellencies, colleagues, many familiar faces, good morning and welcome to Kigali. We are really happy to see so many colleagues making it to Kigali. It's our first in-person AGRF after 2 tough and long years. So we are thrilled to have you in Rwanda, and we really appreciate that you have given us an opportunity to be your host again. Right Honorable Prime Minister, I think it has been mentioned previously by Dr. Kalibata that we are having this summit in the middle of the crisis. It's COVID, climate, conflict, or food, fuel, fertilizer crisis. I mean, anyone can name it the way he wants, but the most important thing is that we are into the crossing road of how we survive as people. Now, we have been having many similar meetings, but I think, and I hope this one is going to be a game changer, because we haven't, I mean, there was a food crisis back in 2008, but a similar thing like what we have today has not happened, at least in my generation. So I really appreciate everyone being here. And the question becomes that while all of these issues are not hitting for the first time, we have been discussing so many things, and we all the time speak of small-scale farmers, we speak of hunger, we speak of unlimited land size in Africa, we speak of young people potential, we speak of agribusiness worth of what we should be getting out of these meetings. But over and over, we find it to be at a small scale. So I really hope that these crises that are affecting us at a personal level, I know COVID affected us at a personal level. What resulted of that was that the messenger RNA that has been in publications and lab notebooks for the last 60 years came up to be a robust technology that has given us RNA, COVID vaccine, and is going to be used in RNA therapies to treat complicated diseases. I'm really happy to know that some of the partners in the room are also working to get the technology at the use of people to deal with crop pests. It's a new powerful technology that is coming up. And that is one of the technologies that is at the table because COVID affected us at the personal level. Can we really see that this conflict that we are having, this crisis that are having, we know we all the time say that they are affecting most the vulnerable. But I know many middle class people are suffering because the food prices are really draining their pockets and things are changing. So my wish from this week-long gathering is that at the end of it, we come up with actionable plans that are getting us out of the present situation, but also that are going to help us to build the resilience for our future survival. Science has demonstrated again and again that the world has been shaped to host us as living organisms. But still, for us to survive, we need food to grow and reproduce. Without food, we are, it's really hard for us to grow and survive. And we shouldn't be hearing that millions of people are hungry, millions of children are malnourished. I mean, we need to take it to the level to feel that we are affecting the survival of certain living organisms, which are us as human beings. So without taking so long, once again, I'm really thrilled to have you in Kigali. Welcome back home. This is the home of AGRF. When we bid for it in 2019, we believed in the power of this platform to bring real changes in their lives. So feel comfortable, feel at home, and welcome back. Thank you.
Thank you. Some powerful statements there. And as we move into the next sequence of this morning's events, we're going to talk about advancing Africa's food system, starting with the presentation of the report on the Africa Agricultural Status Report. It is my honor to welcome Professor Edward Mbaya, research professor at Cornell University for the Department of Global Development, to give us insights about what this report entails just exactly. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Rwanda, Your Excellencies, President Kalibata, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, please allow me to stand on established protocol. Good morning, AGRF. I say good morning, AGRF. That's more like it. That's Africa, the Africa that I know. Well, it is my distinct honor to stand on this platform today in this beautiful city of Kigali to share with you key highlights from the African Agricultural Status Report, AASR. As you know from previous summits, the AASR is the AGRA's flagship publication that focuses on key emerging agriculture and food security issues around the continent. The title of this year's report is Accelerating African Food System Transformation. This report builds on many excellent reports and strategic documents that have already been written on those issues. The reports include previous ASSRs, proceedings from the recent UN Food System Summit, National Agricultural Development Frameworks, Sustainable Development Goals, AU's Agenda 2063, and many, many more. So you must be wondering, what is new in this report? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the journey towards food and nutritional security for Africa has a very clear destination: zero hunger. Thanks to the many strategy documents and all these key summits, we also have a very reasonable consensus on the roadmap. That is sustainable intensification, climate-smart agriculture, and the food systems approach. What this report does, what the report focuses on, is how we can get there faster while adapting to this ever-changing terrain. Time is of the essence. We must accelerate the transformation of African food systems. The report opens by outlining what is at stake. Africa's food systems are highly vulnerable to climate change, conflict, and other shocks. They also, by the way, impose very high costs on environment and biodiversity. Simply put, the status quo is unsustainable. Without transformative change, African food systems will continue to slow down human development and will continue our overdependence on food imports. Without transformation, our food systems will further exacerbate climate, environmental destruction. We emphasize in this first chapter the need for true cost accounting for our food systems so that we can factor in all the costs and benefits on natural, social, human, and produced capital. Now, to achieve food and nutritional security, African governments must anticipate and proactively respond to major demographic, economic, environmental, and social mega trends that are shaping the continent's food systems. These mega trends include rural population growth and associated land scarcity, rising urban population and associated increase in demand for food, economic transformation, including rising wages and per capita incomes, climate change and the increasing incidence of extreme weather events. I don't know about you, but every time I turn onto the TV, there's something about extreme weather in the news these days. Also, shocks from global health crises, economic disruptions, and conflicts such as the Russo-Ukraine war. And lastly, we must harness the accelerated pace of technical innovation in the realm of digital agriculture. The character of Africa's food systems continues to evolve in response to these drivers, and so too should the nature of the food policies and investment strategies. We're chasing a moving target here. So Chapter 2 looks at the role of leadership in harnessing this collective effort, shared responsibility, and greater stakeholder engagement, as well as rallying political will to achieve food system transformation. To continue on my journey metaphor, these are the drivers or the pilots that can either step on the accelerator or push on the brakes. The multidimensional and complex nature of our food systems requires that key actors, including national governments, international agencies, civil society, farmer organizations, and private sector should work together towards this common goal of food and nutritional security. Our political systems, especially governments, regional bodies such as AU, ECOWAS, EAC, COMESA, and SADC, are at the center of leadership and coordination of food system transformation and interventions. Leadership and coordination should adopt a multi-stakeholder approach to enhance efficiency in resource use, effectiveness in interventions, buy-in from targeted communities, and better targeting of interventions. Chapter 3, contributed by my good friends at African Development Bank, explores investment gap that is required to sustain transformation. Financing is really the fuel that is needed to maintain acceleration. According to new estimates from New Growth Initiative, food system transformation in Africa requires up to 77 billion, that's billion with a capital B, per year from the public sector, and up to $180 billion per year from the private sector. There's a very clear consensus on the critical role of the private sector in driving the required scale of investment. Now, mobilizing this financing at scale requires African governments to define priorities focused on cooperative advantage and inclusive growth, provide strong political commitment to finance priority actions, enhance coordination between government and private sector, and also ensure good governance and accountability towards our results. The fourth chapter explores human, institutional, and systemic capacities that are required to achieve transformation at scale. This is the engine that is going to set the upper limit on how fast we can accelerate. Capacity development requires efforts that are guided by 7 core principles. 1, country ownership and leadership. 2, alignment with national needs and priorities. 3, use of national systems and local expertise. 4, no one-size-fits-all tactics. 5, multi-level approaches. 6, mutual accountability, and seventh, harmonizing action through partnerships. We also note that even though agricultural research capacity in Africa increased by 90% from 2000 to 2016, declining public sector investment in agricultural research system threatens Africa's capacity to adapt fourth industrial revolution technologies to local conditions. The report concludes with a very clear call for bold action. Accelerating African food system transformation is a complex task. Achieving the needed transformation while responding to all these ongoing crises will require a coordinated approach from all stakeholders. The report outlines key priority interventions by government, the public sector, development partners, and also the private sectors. It is time to put into action all those carefully calibrated strategies, policy reforms, and investment plans. The future of 1.5 billion Africans depends on the actions and decisions that we make here today. On that note, let me also point out that all the key decision makers for this required acceleration are here in the room today. Right here among us, we have representatives from highest levels of government, great researchers, development finance institutions, key donors, private sector, civic organizations, and even farmers. The buck stops here in this room. Now, I do not know about you, but for me, failure is simply not an option. I dream of a future where AGRF will be repurposed to Africa's Food Expo, where we can gather in a meeting like this to celebrate abundant food and the great diversity of Africa's delicious cuisines. Don't you all dream that? We do, right? Now, before I hand back to the moderator and the esteemed panel that's coming after me, I would like to thank Dr. Kalibata, Jane Jaguna from AGRA, Andrew Cox, and the rest of the team at AGRA for this excellent opportunity. I would also like to acknowledge my co-editors for this report, Professors Tom Jane and Robbie Richardson, and a big thank you to all the contributing authors and reviewers for your excellent contributions to this report. Onwards and forwards with accelerating African food system transformation. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Asante sana.
Thank you very much for sharing those insights and for giving us the dream that we will see the Africa that we want to see. Next up, I'd like to welcome the esteemed panel that we've just talked about. I'd like to welcome Honorable Minister Demba Sabali, Minister of Agriculture for Gambia. Doctor, and we can give him a round of applause as he comes to the stage. Dr. Apollos Nwafor, Vice President for Policy and State Capability at AGRA. Mr. Jai Shroff, CEO at UPL. And joining us virtually, Ms. Anke Opperman, Head of the Directorate 12, A Decent Work Worldwide, Food and Nutrition Security for the Federal Ministry for Cooperation and Development of Germany. So in the very first panel, we talked about where we currently are in terms of agriculture, in terms of food security, in terms of developing and transforming food systems. In this short panel, we'd like to talk about what we are currently doing and where we're headed. So I'd like to start off by addressing my question to the Minister of Gambia. Considering the constrained fiscal budgets, as Minister of Agriculture, what do you see as the most important, let's say the most critical area of public investment when it comes to achieving food system transformation?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Good morning, His Excellency, the Prime Minister for Rwanda and former Prime Minister for Ethiopia, and His Excellency, the President of AGRA. I'll say good morning to all my co-panelists here, and morning to the auditorium. As a government or ministers, our area of interest is investing in the public. And given the question of the day, we have our priorities in the entire food system, in the entire agricultural value chain. In public investment, we focus on production, we focus on processing, we focus on transportation and marketing, and also we focus on food waste, especially pre- and post-harvest waste. In areas of production, as a government, our investment priorities are focused on human capital, human investment. And this includes, in terms of education from the level of the university to the level of the farmer. Human investment is one of our priorities as a government. And also on the production, we focus on mechanization and technologies. This is a challenge, but also is our area of interest. The most important part as far as investment is concerned for the public is land access and land policy development. We've realized that most of our producers are rural folks and they are smallholder farmers. And access to land has been a challenge, especially to the women folks, unfortunately. This is an area that we are interested in and working on. That is our land policy and land access. As a government, we also invest in high-yield varieties. If you know, Gambia is the smallest country in mainland Africa, so land is a challenge for us, and so we are focused more on productivity than production. So high-yield varieties are our priority investment areas, and also climate change resilient varieties. We are introducing and investing in salt-tolerant varieties. We are also investing in drought-tolerant type of varieties. And this is because of our ever-expanding saline intrusion in our areas. We are also investing in agroforestry because not only is it a reliable food source, but also it's a mitigating factor for the never-ending climate challenges that we have in our part of the world. So these are areas that we are focused on as far as production is concerned. And then the next thing that as a government we work on is the issue of processing, because what we have realized is there's serious post-harvest waste in our part of the world. So processing seems to be one of the solutions for way forward. And as a government, we invest in this area by creating a lot of tax incentives for people who are interested in processing, especially for mitigating post-harvest loss. We also invest in the infrastructure that is reliable and affordable electricity for processing to be able to take place. This is an area that we focus on, and that not only it minimizes post-harvest waste, but also it is a source of job creation for the youth, which is a challenge for our country in that part of the world. Other areas of interest for public investment includes transportation and marketing. And in this area, we focus more on the infrastructure that will give access to the land, to the fields, but also access to the markets. So investment in infrastructure is a priority area for our government and for most governments in Africa. And in marketing, we talk about our pricing policies, that farmers get value for their products, but also we have challenge, and our donor partners are in the room. They are very familiar with this language of subsidies. It is a major challenge for most of us in government that we have to subsidize for a few of the products. These are areas that we are working on introducing smart subsidies for targeted beneficiaries. This is an area that we are investing. Okay. And also in marketing and transportation, we are also investing heavily on digitalization of data, like the farmer information. This way we know the number of farmers, where they're located, the amount of land they are cultivating, and they have not only target them for beneficiary purposes, but also be able to understand where are we heading, and are we heading in the right direction. And this is an area that we are focusing on. And finally, for public investment, we work seriously on food waste management, because this is an area of concern, I guess, for almost every part of the world. If the figures are right, Gambia or most part of West Africa may have up to 30% of their food getting wasted, either pre or post-harvest. So our investment as a government in this area focuses more on food diversification. The population needs to be reoriented, and there should be serious diversification of food sources. And also, this gets us back to the issue of processing. To manage pre- and post-harvest waste, we must be seriously engaged in processing and marketing. And then that brings us to what are we doing as far as post-harvest management is concerned. One is appropriate storages. This is an area that we are seriously investing in, that products are appropriately stored, because aflatoxin is a major challenge for us that are engaged in groundnut cultivation in Gambia and cashew production. These are products that are high value if they are managed well, but they can definitely be a burden if aflatoxin gets in. So pre- and post-harvest management to minimize food waste is an area of investment for our government, and I'm sure is an area of investment for many governments. Thank you.
And I'm sure that we'll hear a lot more about that throughout the next couple of days. Thank you. So based on or considering the elements that the Minister has just shared with us, I'd like to ask all the remaining panelists, how do we move forward? What is the priority action point in just a few words for the purposes of time? And I'd like to start with you, our virtual participant, Ms. Opperman.
Thank you so much, and greetings from Berlin to Kigali. It's a pleasure and an honor, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. My main message to you today is that a lot of good efforts to transform our global agri-food systems are already underway, and this morning we already learned a lot about it. I just wanted to highlight that September last year, African heads of state and government adopted an Africa common position on food systems as a regional submission to the UN Food Systems Summit. And I would like to congratulate the African Union Commission and the African Union Development Agency for having coordinated this process successfully. We acknowledge the African common position and Africa's game-changing solutions that it contains. And let me emphasize, we stand ready to support AU member states in implementing the recommendations that emerged from the UN Food Systems Summit. And let me just mention one other very, very important example. We also commend the African Union for advancing the implementation of the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program as the continent's key instrument to achieve the ambitious targets of the 2014 Malabo Declaration. The German government provided substantial support to the rollout of CAADP from 2008 to 2020, and we are happy to note that the food systems approach is now being conceptually integrated into the existing CAADP framework. I just wanted to start from these two very, very encouraging points to say that from my perspective, it's very, very important that we connect, cooperate and coordinate and have a very, very close relationship to exchange the available information and data, and to learn in the process more and more about what actually is needed to foster the agricultural systems in times of the food crisis. Many others already told us very important information about this today. And therefore, from a point of the German government, let me just highlight two areas which, in our view, are of particular importance. The one is the whole area of agriculture in the sense that we want to increase or help to increase agricultural productivity on a sustainable basis. We want that there is also included strengthening the capacity for adaptation and to increase sustainable consumption and reduce food losses. We already heard about this earlier. And the second very important field from our view is agroecology. And we have in our core area strategy, BMZ strategy, sustainable agri-food systems area of areas of intervention, an agroecological strategy that provides a solid basis on which to increase productivity in a resource efficient and sustainable manner. And from our point of view, it is very important also to bring into practical work all the internationally agreed guidelines and recommendations. Absolutely. For example, FAO's 10 elements of agroecology. So just to give you an impression, those are two areas in which we think it is very important to cooperate and to bring forward our international agenda. And I just wanted to end with an invitation, actually, since under the G7 German presidency, we launched the Global Alliance for Food Security, GARFs, and to combat the hunger crisis and to bring together as many international actors as possible from all different areas to work together to assist in repurposing agricultural support to transform food systems. And I just wanted to end with an invitation to all stakeholders present here today to join this important alliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and a tangible invitation there. My next question, I'm going to ask you the same question, and if you can keep it to one sentence for the purpose of time. What is your key message moving forward, Mr. Schroff?
No, I think, it's very important to understand the plight of agriculture, or the people involved in agriculture as the farmers. It's very important to understand from the point of view of a technology providing company like us. We work with farmers all around the world, and particularly with small farmers. And a farmer in a 5-year cycle will definitely have a drought, definitely have a flood, definitely have a price collapse of his commodities, and will have supply chain disruptions, and by which his income gets disrupted and his cash flows get disrupted. Now, if we are not building resilience of these farmers, talking about food systems doesn't matter, because you can provide all the fertilizer, all the chemicals, all the technology to improve food productivity. But unless he has the capacity to absorb losses in 1 or 2 cycles and recover from that, it's very difficult to take it to the next level. And for the last 10, 15 years, we've been trying to do that. And we keep finding bottlenecks, because a farmer will work for 3 years, he has a bad incident of whatever natural calamity, and then he goes back to abject poverty. Nobody wants to lend him, nobody wants to build infrastructure, etc. So it starts with resilience of farmers, and at UPL we are working to in the rice value chain, cocoa value chain, potato value chain, sorghum, cotton value chains across Africa to build resilience among farmers, and bringing in financial products. That's not our business, but bringing in financial products to actually benefit from carbon sequestration, giving him some resilience based on that, giving him extra income. So these are some of the challenges which are being faced, and for which we really need to start at the bottom, if we want a consistent value chain to actually feed Africa and feed the world from here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And to you, Dr. Nwafor, what is your key message in one sentence? Thank you.
Thank you. I think what's important is to understand, very excellent points from the Honorable Minister from Gambia here, who's talked about all the areas of investments. But I think what's important in addition to that is that we must begin to consider a new approach to leadership to drive food systems transformation globally, particularly in the continent. For example, one of the things we've seen as AGRA is that, there is data and analytics, right? But turning that data and analytics to strategic decisions that ensures that a leadership is able to make the right choices that will drive food systems transformation is important. So we need a leadership that is actually backed by evidence, but also a leadership that's flexible to the context that we face today. We know that the crisis that we're facing globally and in the continent is no longer a one-off issue. It's become an everyday thing. So building resilient systems, ensuring that a leadership recognizes that and it's able to ensure that it's supporting, every member or every stakeholder rather who needs to support that leadership is important. I've always told people, listen here, every dollar counts for the smallholder farmer. Yeah. They don't have the luxury of trial and error. And what that means is that we must have the right kind of enabling environment to support the farmers, to ensure that they're able to increase their yield, as well as increase their incomes. And this is where leadership plays a role, from the policy-making environment to the issues of delivery, as well as the issues of, making sure that our farmers are able to thrive despite the challenges that we face. Yeah. And I think that's really important. A second thing I think that's really important is also the fact that we must begin to appreciate the fact that a data in itself is not as good as when it is turned into a decision. Yeah. And turning data to decision making is critical. So these will support the right kind of leadership within the context of building resilient systems, supporting our farmers, and working with all other sectors. Because food systems transformation is not just about food. It's about health. It's about education. For example, the school feeding program. Yeah. It's also about building an economy that is sustainable. Because food systems transformation is a driver of economic growth and not a product of. And I think we need to look at it that way.
And that is a perfect closing statement for this panel. Building resilient, transforming food systems. Thank you so much to my esteemed panel. And as we go into the final sequence of this morning's events, we are about to launch the Africa Agricultural Status Report. But before that, to give us his remarks, I'd like to welcome His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, Chair of the AGRF Partners Group and former Prime Minister of Ethiopia. Let's rise as he takes the stage.
Your Excellency, Edward Girente, Prime Minister of Republic of Rwanda, Excellencies Minister of Agriculture, Trade and Finance, AGRF partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to stand here today after 2 years of having a virtual and hybrid AGRF, as we can physically come together again. I am also delighted that the beautiful city of Kigali has opened its doors to host Africa in its flagship Agriculture and Food Systems Conference. With over 2,600 people in Kigali this week, we are able to have policymakers, researchers, farmers, development partners, and civil society in one place to address Africa's vision of ending hunger and achieving food systems transformation by 2030. The 2021 UN Food Systems Summit has brought a global shift from increasing productivity paradigm to that of food systems transformation. The food systems thinking has become even more urgent due to the nexus between food, agriculture, and the related issues like health, nutrition, education, trade, and industrialization. These are truly drivers of economic growth. Therefore, a food systems transformation is a key to economic transformation. We need this now. Anything short of this implies that Africa is likely to be the only hungry continent by 2030. The cost of food is 42% higher on average since the shock of COVID-19 and the food crisis began. With recurring climate change effects, the gains made in achieving food security are being eroded yet again, particularly in our continent, Africa. Furthermore, the increasing burden on our governments and farmers call for urgent and bold actions to be taken. It is for this reason that the theme for this year's AGRF is Grow, Nourish, and Reward, bold actions for resilient food systems. We are in a time when we need urgent actions because every minute when we do not take action, at least an adult, 2 children, and 2 women fall below the poverty line due to hunger and malnutrition. We can't afford to wait. We need bold actions because the challenges we are facing require stronger and innovative leadership that improves coordination, strengthens our institutions, and deliver results in an integrated manner at scale. While there are examples of successes, achieving at scale has remained largely a challenge. The strategies and actions we will take from this summit must be resilient because the economic and climate-related shocks have revealed that our systems are fragile. Our people need new capacities and innovations, and innovation is no longer a luxury. The shocks are becoming an everyday challenge, thus resilience must be embedded in our strategies and actions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the 2022 AGRFs has been designed to elicit new thought leadership that will result in bold actions. To ensure we deliver on the theme, we have broken this down into 4 sub-themes, which include 1, advancing food systems action in the face of crisis; 2, climate actions through and food, for food systems; 3, malnutrition and healthy diets; and 4, markets and livelihoods. We have also improved our deal room, and evidence of this is that the fact that 15 African countries will pitch their investment plans with a growing number of investors who are eager to invest in SMEs for food systems transformation in the countries. The voice of our farmers remain important as they are at the center of food systems transformation. The Farmers Forum will ensure that our smallholders shape the outcomes of this summit and share the responsibility of taking bold actions. We will listen from them and give utmost attention to their views and recommendations. Equally, we shall also share lessons from leadership, finance, and accountability. Advancing national food systems pathways, you will recall that in 20 21 African countries united behind a common African position on food systems transformation to achieve the 2030 agenda. And more than 2/3 of them, that's 27 African countries, developed national pathways customized to their unique contexts. Also, in preparation for the 2023 Fertilizer Summit, the African Union Commission will be hosting a special event to prepare for the summit. This will ensure that we build momentum in this summit for the next one. Excellency Prime Minister, let me use this opportunity to appreciate your government for being a gracious host as ever and making everyone feel at home, home away from home, and comfortable here in Kigali. I'm very much delighted by the usual generosity and hospitality of the people and government of Rwanda, and would like to thank from the bottom of my heart our host, President Paul Kagame, for giving us this opportunity to convene this Premier Food Systems Forum in beautiful Kigali. As I bring my speech to a close, I would like to welcome everyone to the 12th AGRF and kindly invite Your Excellency to make your remark and to declare the summit open. I thank you.
And now I'd like to welcome Right Honourable Prime Minister Edouard Ngirente for the official opening remarks.
Your Excellency Haile Mariam, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia and Chair of AGRF Partners Group, our distinguished guests, a very good morning. It is my pleasure to join you this morning for the official opening of the African Green Revolution Forum Summit 2022. The government of Rwanda is delighted to co-host this year's summit together with the African Green Revolution Forum group of partners. We are glad to have you all here attending this summit in person, unlike the two previous editions held in a hybrid format due to COVID-19 pandemic. Your presence here today is a testament of your commitment to keep on driving agricultural transformation and achieve Africa's agricultural agenda. Our theme for this year's summit, as has been mentioned, is Grow, Nourish, Reward, Bold Actions for Resilient Food Systems. This theme highlights our urgent need to build inclusive, sustainable, and resilient food systems in this post-COVID period. Over the years, Africa has achieved good progress in different sectors, including the agriculture sector, which was only disturbed by the onset of COVID-19 pandemic. While most countries are recovering from this global shock, our ability to get together more than ever is key in advancing food systems to ensure food security for our people. The current high food prices we're experiencing nowadays makes it difficult for families and the community to meet their own food needs. This calls for bold measures to improve our capabilities for sustainable food production and supply to markets. What we do now impacts tomorrow's results. increasing investment in strategic areas of agricultural value chain, such as reduction of post-harvest losses, which are estimated between 30% and 40% of the total production in developing countries, use of fertilizers and improved seeds, adoption of smart agriculture, as well as de-risking the sector, will build resilient and sustainable food security. For this to be achieved, there is a need to build a strong partnership between the public and the private sector for diversified investment that broadly impacts agricultural production. Distinguished guests, since we're discussing food systems, let me share with you briefly Rwandan experience. Since the 2008 food price crisis, Rwanda has been investing in agricultural value chains and other key and targeted interventions to strengthen Rwandan food systems. As we work to achieve sustainable food systems, Rwanda continues to invest in several initiatives. These include establishing post-harvest handling facilities to limit food losses and waste. We are also promoting use of smart farming techniques, such as increasing irrigation coverage to mitigate the negative effects of climate change, as well as the use of agricultural ICT systems. We are encouraging use of fertilizers and improved seeds under crop intensification program. This program is geared towards supporting farmers in having access to improved seeds, fertilizers, and irrigation to increase production for priority crops on consolidated lands. The risking agriculture sector is also our priority as a government to make the sector more profitable and attractive, especially to young population as the future workforce in agriculture sector. In this regard, several schemes have been initiated, such as the Agricultural Insurance Scheme. The government of Rwanda has also invested heavily in agricultural extension services, including plant breeding research centers, and this has helped to reduce Rwanda's dependency on seed importation. Currently, most of our improved seeds are locally produced. Rwanda has also established the National Strategic Grain Reserve in response to potential shocks to food supply. This reserve is used as a safety net to support communities affected by disasters while buffering prices and avoid market distortion. Distinguished guests, at a continental level, as we all know, we have seen bold action at continental level with our head of state and the government coming together to form the African Continental Free Trade Area. We now need to leverage such mechanisms to ensure we are able to better meet our own food security needs. In this journey to transform African agriculture, African countries need to fully commit to driving a comprehensive agricultural transformation as a key foundation of our economic growth. Together, we will continue working on this agenda as we accelerate bold actions in this African Union Year of Nutrition. Let us take this moment to ensure we get back on a track toward meeting the goals we have set ourselves in achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Malabo Declaration. As I conclude, I would like to express once again my gratitude to all of you who have honored our invitation for AGRF Summit 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda. On this note, I hereby declare the 2022 African Green Revolution summit officially open. I thank you so much.
Ask a Right Honourable Minister if you could stay on the stage as we do the official ribbon cutting ceremony and the launch of the ASSR. I'd also like to welcome His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, Honourable Gerardine Mukeshimana, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, and Mr. Edward Mabaya as we do the official ribbon cutting ceremony.
Kurikiye rero inama mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi itegurwa n'ihuriro mpuzamahanga ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi hano ku mugabane wa Afurika AGRA, inama izwi nka AGRF, ikaba imaze gutangizwa ku mugaragaro ahangaha muri Kigali Convention Center, aho nyakubahwa Minisitiri w'Intebe Dr. Edouard Ngirente amaze gutangiza iyi nama ku mugaragaro. Ni inama izamara iminsi igera hafi kuri 5. Iyi nama rero ikaba ifite ibice bitandukanye. Ibiganiro byo kuri uyu munsi wa mbere bitangiza ku mugaragaro bikaba bibaye mu gihe abandi banyacyubahiro nabo bategerejwe mu biganiro biri imbere. Hari inama itegerejwe y'abakuru b'ibihugu, hari inama y'abamadamu ba perezida ba repubulika ahangaha ku mugabane wa Afurika cyangwa se ba first ladies. Hari abandi banyacyubahiro benshi bitabiriye iyi nama nk'uko twahoze tubigarukaho, harimo nk'umunyamabanga mukuru wa Commonwealth Madame Patricia Scotland, n'abanyacyubahiro benshi mu by'ukuri bari hano kugira ngo hafatwe ingamba zikomeye, ingamba zifatika ku iterambere ry'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi ahangaha ku mugabane wa Afurika. Minisitiri w'Intebe Dr. Edouard Ngirente rero akaba yavuze ko imwe mu ngamba zikomeye zigomba gufatwa ari ugushora imari mu nzego zituma ryibura umusaruro utakara mu gihe cyo gusarura ahangaha ku mugabane wa Afurika ugabanuka, dore ko bisobanurwa ko hagati ya 30 na 40% by'umusaruro w'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi wangirika mu gihe cy'isarura. Minisitiri w'Intebe Dr. Edouard Ngirente akaba asabye ko mu by'ukuri ibihugu bya Afurika muri rusange byakwihatira gushora imari muri ibyo bikorwa remezo bituma umusaruro wangirika ugabanuka, kubera ko hagati ya 30 na 40% ni umusaruro mwinshi. Reka rero turarekeye gukomeza gukurikira imirimo y'iyi nama muri gahunda za televiziyo Rwanda zitandukanye. Tubifurize gukomeza kugira ibihe byiza aho muri hirya no hino, mukomeze kunogerwa n'izindi gahunda zacu zose.